All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for showing up, and we're about to show out. So what's going to happen right now, I'm trying something different, but you can see, if you've been following, what you can see is that I'm personally, wait, where's my manners? Thank you for spending this time with me. I know you could be doing anything. I appreciate it. This is Occult Topics with the Professor, and this is the Tarot and its Correspondences. We're now on the Heirophant, card number 5, and so far it's been a beautiful journey. I apologize for the delay, and we've been covering the card a week, and it's kind of gotten not jumbled, but it's hard for me to stick to my schedule because I work a full-time job, a lot of hours, stuff like that. But thank you for following. If you have been, if you're just tuning in, I suggest that you go back. A lot of jewels have been dropped, a lot of revelations. This is essentially a study, research. It was something I decided to do and I want to share. I appreciate all the feedback that I've gotten thus far. It's really been helpful. And so we're going to continue. Now, what I'm doing a little different today, anybody who's been following previously knows that I'm kind of partial to the BOTA Tarot deck, the builders of the Adepts, which is those who follow the teachings of Paul Foster Case. Most of us have the Rider-Waite deck, which is the card to the right. The card to the very left is the Bota deck. And in the center, which is new, I'm going to start putting up this very basic breakdown of what each card represents. So while we're going over, you can study this, or you can go on Google, pull it up for yourself, look at it, get a very basic understanding as I go through different information. I'm using the same books every time. I might weave in a different book every now and then. And that every now and then book right now is Barbara G. Walker's book, The Secrets of the Tarot, Origins, History, and Symbolism. Barbara G. Walker is a certified beast. Anything she writes is off the charts. And so I say with that, let's dive in. But first, I want to do a shameless plug of my book, which is The Occult Meaning of Masonry, Its Symbols, and the Chakra System by the Professor. Now, you hear Masonry in the title. You don't have to be a Mason to get it. I wrote the book in such a manner that I'm essentially just using Masonry as a correspondence to the chakra system and other different occult arts. But these things are interchangeable. And I wrote that book in a manner to where if you're an adept or if you're new to this path, it will be a key. It's something you can use as a tool to fuel your knowledge of self. Having said that, let's dive in. Now, what I want to do is pick up where we left off last week in Barbara G. Walker's book, The Secrets of the Tarot, Origins, History, and Symbolism. I'm going to go back a little bit and keep going forward. I actually want to get caught up to where we are in terms of the different cards. So I'm going to read this for a good 20, 30 minutes, and then we're going to jump over and get down to the actual topic of this evening. And so what we're dealing with now in her book is, she's detailing the sacred tarot and its origins. What I pointed out last week is that something C. Freeman Ale always said, secret means sacred, sacred means secret. So a lot of times people hear of secret societies and they think of things being kept away from them. Those things usually that are being kept away from you are matters of initiation. However, secret merely means sacred. So don't look at it so much as something evil going on as something sacred. And in dealing with things sacred, there's a term called profane. If you're profane or uninitiated, then these sacred matters are now secret to you. Different organizations, Golden Dawn, Freemasonry, Rosicrucians, it goes on and on. These things are considered secret. However, as we find ourselves on the cusp of the age of Aquarius, there are no secrets. You can find out these things for yourself. So feel free to pursue what tickles your fancy. All these things on the internet. You can self-initiate. I would not tell anyone that you have to join a society, although it does have its benefits. We exist in this realm of polarity, so anything that comes with the benefit has a reverse aspect as well. So long as you maintain your frame, know your intent, keep your focus, it doesn't matter what you do. Actually, to be honest, I would suggest that you don't join anything. Gain the rudimentary knowledge first beforehand before you decide, because all these schools of thought originated from a single source or a single person. You know, there's a famous meme that you see that says Buddha wasn't a Buddhist, Jesus wasn't a Christian, Muhammad wasn't a Muslim, so on and so on. So I am a Prince Hall Mason, but I just don't want this to seem as a platform like I'm recruiting or anything like that. But initiation is critical, whether it be self-initiation or the group. The trick with self-initiation is there's a possibility for that. There's a purpose in initiation and ritual. And through self-initiation, in the West, we find ourselves, most of us have no guru. Our guru is our higher self or our intent, focus, and purpose. Once upon a time, you couldn't even embark upon these studies unless you had a guru or a master who would guide you along. And it might take 30 to 49 years to even become a master yourself. And so that's the difference in this Western civilization that we now exist in. And a lot of people put a negative connotation on West because, you know, I get it. You've sipped from the now in the previous lifetime, so you are not a Westerner. However, West merely refers to an aspect of, I would say, non-tradition. We are not bound to tradition. You may be a Muslim, but your parents weren't, and your children are not. So that's it, and that's all. So let's dive in. So where we're picking up at now in Barbara G. Walker's book, I'm on page 11. And so what she says here is that among these rites and customs are maypoles, Halloween masks, Christmas mistletoe, holly, ivy, pine trees, and Yule logs, Easter eggs brought by the moon hare, harvest home feasts, Lent fasts, midsummer bonfires, mystery plays, carnival processions, well dressings, and circle dances. Some became children's games, nursery rhymes, and maze dances like Troy Town. The fairy ring dance, which circled window shins counterclockwise around the goddess's holy rose, contributed its chant as ring around the rosy in English. So what I like most about Barbara G. Walker is that not only does she break down the essence of a thing, the origin of it, of this symbology, but she shows how it has intermingled into, I guess you could say, the collective conscious in terms of everyday things. In this instance, nursery rhymes, things like that. So all these things have an origin or a connection to tarot. Let me take a sip of coffee. I got a nice cup of coffee. Ringle Ringle, Rosencrantz in German. Hobby horse and broomstick dances were once performed by adults, not children, in honor of the mare goddess Epona. Pagan sacred symbols also reappeared in children's party games like bobbing for apples, and pinning the tail on the donkey. Blind man's bluff was once a sacrificial ritual. Now, I'll be honest, bobbing for apples is something that I have a very distinct memory of. So by her dropping that, actually, I'm very curious to know what's the origin of bobbing for apples, because she dropped that so casually, and it's something that we no longer do. As a matter of fact, I told my kids about, hey, what's up, y'all? Hold on a second. Let me pause this up. You said what? All right, I apologize for that. My family came home. You got to get the tea. You got to hear what happened, whatever, whatever was ever. So let's pick back up where we left off at. Actually, I was discussing the the jewel she dropped. She just dropped it in our laps about the pagan sacred symbols also reappeared in Christians' party games like bobbing for apples and pinning the tail on a donkey. Now, I would love to know what she uncovered about those, because I was telling my kids about things like bobbing for apples, and it kind of like repulsed them. They could understand the purpose behind doing it, and that's what led me to realize that actually that was a ritual, that is, I'm pretty sure it's transformed into something else, but it was just totally alien to my kids. So just want to drop that real quick. We can move on. Religious instruction via games and other visual aids obviously was intended for the illiterate who couldn't study scriptures. For these, the overwhelming majority of people in ancient or medieval Europe, the only readable books were pictures, which is why Gothic cathedrals were covered with graphic representations of heaven, hell, doomsday, saints, devils, and all the rest of the church's messages. Similar messages seem to have been conveyed through the pictures on the cards. Card packs were often called books by the same clergymen who denounced them. Some authorities mentioned mysterious elf books given by the fairies to people they loved, which enabled them to foretell future events. Elf books evidently were packs of divinatory cards. The fact that the tarot cards were and still are used for divination strongly suggests that they were once considered holy. Divination comes from divine for the very reason that only sacred things were supposed to have prophetic powers. Literate Christians often use the Bible for divination because of its sacredness. They would open the book at random and touch some words, then draw a prophecy from the text. St. Augustine himself recommended divination from the scriptures in all cases of spiritual difficulty. That's something I definitely remember a lot of people doing is, people still do it. You open the Bible, whatever you fall on, that was meant for you that day. This particular kind of divination required that one should, one, own a Bible, and two, know how to read it. Neither case was very common at the beginning of the Renaissance. Few Europeans could read or write. Even a majority of the clergy were illiterate. A candidate for the priesthood was not required to learn to read, only to memorize a catechism. General education was not attempted in Europe until the 19th century, but even in the 1890s, only a third of the population could read. Since Bibles were written in Latin before the Reformation, a person wishing to read one would have to be literate, not only in his own language, but in a foreign language too. Even then, a layman couldn't read the Bible because he was forbidden to do so by ecclesiastical law. Pope Gregory the Great long ago made it illegal for laymen to read scriptures, lest they might find something contradictory to the official theology. Up to the Reformation, any person owning the Bible written in the vernacular was subject to burning at the stake. But the Judeo-Christian Bible was only one source of sacred material. There were pagan scriptures, Cabalistic books, alchemical treatises that were really thin disguises for mystical philosophy. There were There were idols and icons of many kinds. Holy images and literature came to Europe from the East and were incorporated into Grail myths, heraldry, and cults of courtly love. Perhaps cards were credited with the cult power for the very reason that the Bibles of the East were often arranged like card packs, with their unbound pages stacked together and secured with string. Such Bibles were known as books of life. This same term was applied in packs of cards in Europe. Among the Slavs, a divinatory card reader was called Vedavivka. Vedavivka, literally one who reads the Vedas, referring to the sacred books of India. I paused reading that because whenever I see it spoke on such Bibles were known as books of life. Some time ago, maybe about 6 years ago, I was heavy into past life regressions through meditation and was handed my book of leaves. And the image evoked reading that just now is what I saw in that past life regression, which was a literal book. Let me back up. It was given to me as my book of leaves, but I later came to understand and decode that to mean my book of lives. So here, when it speaks on the book of life, I have a definite little picture of that. So to see it there made me pause because it brought back the image of those meditations from so long ago, and it just stood out. Never forgot it. But let's get back to it. Oriental sages never thought games incompatible with religion. They disseminated religious ideas through cards, dice, and colorful board games like the still highly popular Tantric Buddhist Game of Rebirth. Similarly, ancient card games were found in the West. One of the oldest was Ombre, from Hispano-Moorish Hombre, the game of man, which resembled the Hindu game Ganjifa. Taylor's History of Playing Cards said, the game of man, a modification of the earlier game of the Primero, is of all modern games that which most resembles the ancient tarot. I want to highlight that just for the Moorish reference, to be honest. However, you can see all these games, soccer, basketball, baseball, they all have encoded information within them, even especially the tabletop games like dominoes. Dominoes is a lunar game. You have 28 dominoes. Up to 4 people can play, holding 7 cards, 7 dominoes apiece, and things of that nature. So you see these games, and we think them to be just games, but they're actually divinatory tools, which is why dominoes are known as bones. You slapping bones. Same thing as dice. Dice originally were made from human knuckles, I believe. And it's the same thing for dominoes. They're called bones because originally they were made from bones and they were used for divinatory purposes. But let me highlight this real quick and then we can get back to it. I'm going to do some research on this game of man. I hear this cat behind me in the kitchen, and he knows he's not supposed to be in the kitchen. So I'm gonna get up this game. Get your butt out that kitchen. All right. Another early card game was Pharaoh, the game of kings, named after Egyptian pharaohs by the Gypsies, who pretended to be their descendants. These peoples were called Gypsies, because on their first recorded appearance in Germany, they claimed to be exiled noblemen from Little Egypt. Gypsies well knew that Europeans were impressed by any reference to Egypt, which they associated with magic and mystery. The Gypsies' real homeland was India, whence they began to migrate westward about the 9th century, carrying their typical Hindu sacred booklets as card packs. Gypsies have always been linked with tarot cards, which they use not only as a source of income for fortune telling, but also as their Bible of the occult beliefs. Gypsies played a leading role in disseminating occult beliefs connected with the cards. Many of the gypsies' beliefs centered on the religious figure that Christian authorities most disliked, the Great Mother, still worshipped in India as the goddess of 100 names. In Egypt, she was credited with 1,000 names. She was the powerful being, whether known as Isis, Parvati, Devaki, Kali, Bhavani, Artemis, Athena, Minerva, Diana, or Madonna, who are all, let me get this word right, unum iendimque, one and the same. Her portrait still appears on the last trump, the culminating card of the Tarot's major arcana, as the World Mother or Cosmic Shakti, to whom all foregoing revelations point. Gypsies knew her as Ma, or Mata, or Laki, Lakshmi, or Kali, or Sarah, or Terra. The last was a primordial mother center of the earth known to the ancient Celts by the same name, Tara, or Tyrannus. That's the three terrors, I believe, the green terror, the blue terror, red terror, something like that. To the Semites as Terra, to the Romans as Terra Mater. An annual carnival in Athens was dedicated to her and bore her name, Terra Mater, Mother Terra. It's probably where we get Terra for Earth. The mysterious word tarot, whose origin has never been traced, may have been derived from the name of this goddess who ruled men's fate. So tarot is possibly an adaptation from Terra, the mother goddess, which is very much like very likely. 21 incarnations of Mother Tara are still associated with sacred divinity, divinatory dice boards of Tantric Buddhism. A board of 21 squares is officially the 21 Taras. Another board of 56 squares is for determining the successive regions and grades of one's future rebirths. These magic numbers, 21 and 56, are the numbers of the Tarot's major arcana and minor arcana, respectively. A full deck includes only one card more, the numberless fool card, who doesn't count because he is always zero. Numerical grouping of the cards probably originated like the figures of the I Ching, with combinations of throws of the rods or dice used for oracles. 21 is the total number of possible throws with 2 dice. 56 is the total number of possible throws with 3 dice. Together, they make 77 or 711s. The prime magic number of dice games. The 0 card may have been added to the deck by astrologically minded occultists to make the zodiacal total, the sum of all the numbers of the 12 zodiacal signs. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12 equals 78. The number of the cards in the full deck. The tarot was often given astrological significance. German horoscopes or nativity calendars in the 16th century were created with pictures directly copied from the major arcana. Gypsies were familiar with the tantric belief that the female principle preceded the male principle. The supreme deity was the goddess, not the god. The whole universe sprang from her genital hug, commonly symbolized by the lotus, a female symbol appearing in many sacred mandalas. The highest ranking tantric lamas used a special lotus dice board as a board game and a divining instrument. Each petal of the lotus bore a number corresponding to prophecies written in a manual, like the I Ching books, compiled by the one who sees all actions, possibly the goddess herself. The primacy of the female principle in Tantrism may explain why the feminine numbered major arcana tarot cards were trumps or greater secrets, while the lesser secrets added up to a masculine number among the trump cards. Important figures were more feminine than male, including a female pope. That's something I've noticed myself. As I dive deeper into the occult, I noticed into the tarot, I noticed for myself that the major arcana consist of overwhelmingly feminine symbols. And so what she's saying is ringing true and correct for me. Where was I? 56, the number of the lesser arcana was associated with male gods. India had a god who personified the number and bore the name of 56. Buddha shared some attributes of this god. When the enlightened one was born, he took 56 steps, 14 in each of the 4 cardinal directions. Let's go back. When the enlightened one was born, he took 56 steps, 14 in each of the 4 cardinal directions, 7 forward and 7 back, forming a cross. The same cross can be made of the 4 tarot suits of 14 cards each, which total 56. In the East and West alike, the cross was generally assimilated to phallic gods and the masculine principle. 56 was a natal number of the sun god born to Mother Earth Terra. His rays formed a cross as he died to re-enter her subterranean tomb womb and be born again. 56 was also the number of years in the ancient astronomical great year. Lunar and solar cycles coincide once every 56 years in ancient calendars. This was usually mythologized as a periodic wedding of the moon goddess and sun god, represented by the numbers 18 and 19. The same numbers assigned to the moon card and the sun twins of the tarot. These stem from the observation that the full moon of the midwinter solstice moves from maximum north declination to minimum north declination in 18.61 years, which had to be multiplied by 3 to correct for its fraction. Silence this joker. What distraction is real tonight? Let's go back. These stem from the observation that the full moon of the midwinter solstice moves from maximum north declination to minimum north declination in 18.61 years, which had to be multiplied by 3 to correct for its fraction, producing a cycle of 56 years. The 56 Aubrey holes at the Stonehenge temple evidently served as an eclipse predicting computer for the great year. Never knew that. If the priests had used a simple 19-year interval, they would have been right for perhaps 2 intervals. And then again, the third interval would have been off by a full year. A rigid 19-year cycle would have soon drifted into hopeless error. The only regular interval alternative, an 18-year cycle, would have been twice as bad. The smallest time unit that would have remained accurate for many years would have been the triple interval measure, 19 plus 19 plus 18, or a total of 56 years. Stonehenge moon phenomenon repeated every 56 years with good uniformity. Some more pages till we get to the end of this chapter. I'm ready to get to the Heirophant. 5 more pages. Let's give it a go. I'll read a couple more pages. The question of calendars was a sore one in the Middle Ages. Europe actually followed 2 incompatible systems of time reckoning. The church insisted on the solar Julian calendar of 12 months, while the common folk kept the old pagan lunar calendar of 13 28-day months. supposedly derived from the menstrual cycles of the goddess manifested in the phases of the moon. Mutual conflict between the two calendars is shown in the two different versions of the nursery rhyme. One, how many months be in the year? There be 13, I say. And two, how many months be in a year? There be but 12, I say. The standard time period of nursery rhymes, fairy tales, ballads, and other remnants of paganism is a year and a day, meaning the lunar year of 364 days, 13 28-day months, plus one more day to make 365. The ecclesiastical calendar retained the 7-day lunar weeks, which is why they no longer fit the months, but broke up the 13th month, 13th moon. Anglo-Saxon monath meant both month and moon. The extra days were added to the other 12 months. 13 was once a sacred number because of the 13 annual lunations, but the churchmen imputed evil to it. In honor of the goddess called threefold moon, queen of fate, 13 priestesses used to dance in the Wintershin's direction, following the retrograde motions of the moon around the wheel of the ecliptic. Such a group came to be called a coven of witches, and the lunar goddess acquired the title of Coventina, mother of covens. The connection between the femaleness and the number 13 is reflected in the tarot. Each tarot queen is the 13th card of her suit. After the defeat of the lunar calendar, 13 became the devil's dozen. Dozen donuts is 13. Friday the 13th was called the unluckiest day because it combined the goddess's sacred number with her sacred day, named after one of her Teutonic forms, Freya. In the Latinate languages, the day is named after Venus. The ancients ate fish on Friday because fish too were sacred to the sea goddess and were thought to arouse the passion of love through her influence. Ironically, the church's main festival of Easter was derived from another of the goddess's many names, Eostre, a Saxon form of Astarte. Despite the institution of the solar calendar, the death and resurrection of the Christian Savior God, like those of the pagan ones, was and still is determined by the moon. Easter is one of the movable feasts that follow the pre-Christian system of dating, though the faithful are not told that it bears the name of the great goddess. We'll stop there, and I'm going to mark my place. Like so. Man, that's a good book. I could read it by itself, which eventually I will. Hopefully we're going to cover it through the series. So from here, we're going to begin going into the different tarot books. So I think I'll go from, let's go with A.E. Waite, which I've said in previous ones, his explanations are a little too simple for me, even though I do appreciate being given homework. You would think that he would give out some more clues, but let's see. And this is, can we get the name in there? There's too much glare. This is A.E. Waite's The Pictorial Key to the Tarot, Arthur Edward Waite. Excuse me. Okay, here we are. The Heirophant. He wears a triple crown and is seated between two pillars, but they are not those of the temple, which is guarded by the high priestess. In his left hand, he holds a scepter terminating in the triple cross, and with his right hand, he gives the well-known ecclesiastical sign, which is called that of esotericism, distinguishing between the manifest and concealed part of doctrine. It is noticeable in this connection that the high priestess makes no sign. At his feet are the crossed keys. The two priestly ministers in albs kneel before him. He has been usually called the Pope, which is a particular application of the more general office that he symbolizes. He is the ruling power of external religion, as the high priestess is the prevailing genius of the esoteric withdrawing power. So this is the exoteric. The proper meaning of this card have suffered woeful admixture from nearly all hands. Grant Orient says truly that the Heirophant is the power of the keys, exoteric, orthodox doctrine, and the outer side of the life which leads to the doctrine. But he is certainly not the prince of occult doctrine, as another commentator has suggested. He is rather the summa totius theologia, when it has passed into the utmost rigidity of expression. Let's look up that word. Summa, I see total sum of theology, but let's look it up. Excuse me. Summa totios. Oh, there we go. It popped up. That's essentially what I said. The total meaning of theology. It says a noun, early church, a compendium of theological, philosophical, or canon law written by St. Thomas Aquinas. All right. It says here, he is rather the summa totius theologiae when it has passed into the utmost rigidity of expression, but he symbolizes also all things that are righteous and sacred on the manifest side. As such, he is the channel of grace belonging to the world of institution as distinct from that of nature, and he is the leader of salvation for the human race at large. He is the order and the head of the recognized hierarchy, which is the reflection of another and greater hierarchic order. But it may so happen that the pontiff forgets the significance of this symbolic state and acts as if he contained within his proper measures all that his sign signifies and his symbol seeks to show forth. He is not, as it has been thought, philosophy except on the theological side. He is not inspiration and he is not religion, although he is a mode of its expression. That says a lot about the Pope himself. Now let's take a look at Phil Cooper. Teach yourself to roll the quick and easy way. I hate this glare. I like it better when I do this in my room because the glare isn't there. Let me see if I can get it to show. So let's see what Phil Cooper has to say about the Heirophant. It's horrible, sleepy. We're going to thug it out. The Heirophant, synopsis, blessing, spiritual guidance, that which is meant to be, if with the 10 of cups, a marriage made in heaven. General description, the Heirophant has his hands raised in a blessing. At his feet are 2 crossed keys and 2 priests kneel before him. Similar to the high priestess, he sits between 2 pillars. The Heirophant symbolizes all that is righteous and sacred, the spiritual side of life. This card represents help and guidance from higher sources. Hmm. We will now go to Manly P. Hall and his secret teachings of all ages. Let's see what he has to say. Just upon opening it up, brief thanks to Ganesh. Om Ganapadaye Namaha. Ganapadaye Namaha. All right, let's see what he has to say about the fifth card. The fifth numbered major trump is called Le Pape, the Pope, and represents the high priest of a pagan or Christian mystery school. In this card, the Hierophant wears a tiara and carries in his left hand the triple cross surmounting the globe of the world. So this one doesn't have the globe on it. I notice between the bolted deck and the weight deck, the pillars actually have different inscriptions. On the chapters, there's different inscriptions, or possibly they're the same, and they look to be the same. The weight deck is more of an outline of what the bolted deck fills in. So, okay. His right hand bearing upon his back the stigmata. It surely does. And the stigmata is in the form of a cross as well. Makes the ecclesiastic sign of esotericism. Now, I never knew that was the ecclesiastic sign of esotericism. Jesus and Buddha both make that sign. And before him kneel two supplicants or acolytes. The back of the papal throne is in the form of a celestial and terrestrial column. This signifies the initiate or master of the mystery of life, and according to Pythagoreans, spiritual physician. The illusionary universe in the form of the two figures, polarity, kneel before the throne upon which sits the initiate, who has elevated his consciousness to the plane of spiritual understanding and reality. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the master wears the uraeus, a white and black figure, life and death, light and darkness, good and evil, kneel before him. The initiate's mastery over unreality is indicated by the tiara and triple cross, emblems of rulership over the three worlds which have issued from the unknowable first cause. Now we see that more so in the weight deck, which has the three crosses down the front of his robe. You see the red, which is activity, the white, which symbolizes purity or innocence, the tiara, crown. A lot of symbolism. We're going to look at these symbols later in these books of symbols, and we'll also look up some deity references to these images. Barbara G. Walker kind of gave up some good, she dropped some good jewels in terms of deities. So we'll look them up. And the mere fact he's wearing a tiara, and we were just reading about the Taurus, we'll definitely look up the Taurus and Ashtar, Isis, etc., and see what connections we can make to those deities and Hierophant. Now from there, let's go. I try to say Paul Foster Case for last because I like his book. Let's go to the Cabalistic Tarot by Robert Wayne. Let's see what he has to say about the Heirophant. Whew. I'm always apologizing for yawning. Work a lot of hours. It's my one off day in 13 days. But I'll be damned if I don't get it in. So just rock with me. Lean with it, rock with it. Okay, we are looking for the Heirophant. Oh, here we go. It is the path of Val, the Heirophant, the fifth key, path color red, orange, related sound C sharp, sign Taurus, fixed earth, meaning nail or hook. That's why he has a stigmata on the back of his right hand, meaning nail or hook. Simple letter, hearing, esoteric title, the mages of the eternal. 32 paths of wisdom. The 16th path is the triumphal or eternal intelligence, so called because it is the pleasure of the glory, beyond which is no other glory like to it. And it is called also the paradise prepared for the righteous. So this path goes from Chokmah to Hesed. And it is called, the 16th path is called the triumphal or eternal intelligence. Remember, the emperor is the constituting intelligence. The path of the Hierophant Vav leads from Chesed to Chokmah. Oh, so I did it in reverse. I said Chokmah to Chesed, but it's actually from Chesed to Chokmah. And there's the uppermost path on the pillar of mercy. It is described in the Golden Dawn documents as the zodiac acting through Taurus upon Jupiter, which may sound simplistic, but which is very accurate. This is the action of Chokmah as the spermatic potential of the manifest universe upon the first manifestation. And Earth does not mean the planet, but materiality. Chokmah is the supernal father, as Chesed is the father in manifestation. Chokmah is the yod of the macropropos. Macropropos. I can never say it right. Macroprosopos. Hesed is the yod of the microprosopos. Thus is the path of Vav, a powerfully masculine one, to which Taurus, Terra, the bull is applied. So we got to remember to look up Apis the bull and any other bull deities too. Shiva rocks with that bull too. It is a fixed earth sign in the zodiac, meaning that it is a stable foundation. And here, our earlier definition of this path as a stabilizing extreme is particularly useful. The Hierophant is the opposite path of the chariot, the vehicle stabilizing active extreme cardinal water by which the soul is carried across the abyss. This made me think of the Moon Knight series where Mark Spector, when he died and he got on a boat with Tararet, that would have been the chariot. That boat would have been the chariot. It is the absolute foundation of the process of revelation. It is a rock solid base of experience between the supreme spiritual self and the ego of Tiferet, of which memory is one aspect. The idea that the Hierophant relates to memory may be considered in light of the meaning of the word Vav, which means nail or hook. A nail binds together, it unifies, suggesting that a primary function of the Hierophant is to link microprosopos with macroprosopos, i.e., the great universe with manifestation. It is a triumphal eternal intelligence by which all that we are is forever tied to the divine spirit. The binding consciousness is described in a variety of symbolic ways, such as it links the sun and the moon, or it ties together the above and the below. It is also related to teaching, that which introduces higher ideas into the lower organism. Expressing it another way, it could be said that the intelligent energy which binds the pure inner spirit to the outer aspects of manifestation is also the source for our understanding of that inner spirit. It is the only source. The Hierophant is the only teacher. He is, as the esoteric title of the card states, the Magus of the Eternal. I'm reading this and at the same time reflecting on the fact that I'm a Taurus. I was given the name professor and many other titles in relation to teaching. So this is all new to me. I always knew I was given these names like super genius and things like that. I've always been intelligent, and just to see the synchronicity that we choose to be here, we choose our zodiac. Come out that kitchen, grass. We choose when we come, our parents, things like that. So to hear this explanation and to know how closely it relates to who I am at 49 years old is pretty dope. In many versions of this key, the seated figure is shown as the Pope. The imagery was explained by A.E. Waite with the suggestion that this is a particular application of the more general office that he symbolizes. He is the ruling power of external religion, as the high priestess is the prevailing genius of the esoteric withdrawn power. That stood out to me too in Waite's definition of the emperor sitting in between two pillars, as opposed to the high priestess sitting between two pillars. If you remember, the high priestess, behind her in the two pillars, there was a veil. That veil was up, suggesting esotericism, whereas behind him there is no veil. So we get the opposite, we get the polarity. Where was I at? Okay. Paul Case emphatically disagreed with this, saying that, on the contrary, he is the pontifex, the bridge maker, who provides a connecting link between the outer experience and the interior illumination. But as we shall presently consider, Wade touches on some very important concepts in this card, which he called the Summa Totius Theologia, when it passed into the utmost rigidity of expression. Relative to the traditional use of the Catholic pontiff and tarot, it should be appreciated that until very recently, Western esotericism was inextricably bound to Christianity. At the period when the cards emerged, metaphysics was merely a way of looking at the given faith, which was above question as a system. There were no viable alternatives. Thus, the great esotericists were either Catholic priests or those who sought the approbation of the Catholic hierarchy for their research. By example, one can cite the correspondence of Henry Cornelius Agrippa with the great humanist abbot John Trithemius. Come on, Taz. Chill out, buddy. He's tired of me being in here. Light should be off. He's ready to sleep, but he's gonna have to get this work. The abbot himself, an avid student of these matters and a Hebrew scholar, warmly responded to receipt of Agrippa's of occult philosophy. With how much pleasure I receive it, no mortal tongue can express, nor the pen of any right. Neither the prelate nor the younger occult philosopher were condemned for the work, because it was actually carried out within the confines of accepted Catholic doctrine. Now that I never knew. I'm pretty sure that was a small window, but that I never knew, that books like Agrippa's book, which is a title, Occult Philosophy, was written within the scope of Christianity. Thus, for the originators of the card to have used the image of their Pope to represent the mysteries of the energies of the path evolved, the supreme teacher was reasonable. This image is problematical only to those attempting to separate the Hermetic Kabbalah from the Renaissance Christianity in which it was unquestionably nurtured. So in a lot of ways, especially if you're anti-Christianity, you cannot remove this image because of its point of establishment or the way it was nurtured. Where are we at? To the 15th century metaphysician, this was not only the Pope as administrator of the inner pathways, but it was the Pope as the teacher speaking ex cathedra from the throne. In Catholic doctrine, when the Pope speaks ex cathedra, his word is infallible. And when the leader of the faith speaks infallibly, all must listen. Thus, devolve the Sefer Yeser attributes hearing. The act of listening is shown in the weight card by the two figures kneeling before the Pope. We should take them to mean the opposite aspects of ourselves in the human condition, united in their listening attention to the universal teacher. These two figures are the sun and the moon. These two figures are the sun and moon, currents of the body, reason and intuition. Reason and intuition, consciousness and subconsciousness, etc. These qualities are anthropomorphized as priests, i.e., participants at the altar rather than spectators. The implication is that both are integral and inseparable part of the process of enlightenment, and that their obedience has been pledged to the principle represented by the Heirophant. Waits, Hierophant blesses from his position between the two columns of the mysteries. At his feet are the cross keys of heaven, gold, sun, and hail. The cross keys of heaven, gold, sun, and hail, silver moon. This latter is so attributed because one of the moon goddesses rules the underworld. In his hand is the papal cross, what has been called the triple cross of the Western peoples. We'll look up that triple cross too. Not surprisingly, the Golden Dawn and Crowley cards have both moved away from the figure as Pope. The Golden Dawn figure retains the three-tiered papal crown, but as a symbol of the supernals. The emphasis is placed on the role of the Hierophant as shepherd and teacher of the law. Crowley, whose early training left him with intensely anti-Christian feelings, has produced a Hierophant reminiscent of one of the Titans, the primeval deities of the Greeks. His main stress was on what we have called the grounding of the keys. For his cherubim at the corners of the card are the tentative expression of the primordial elements of Kether, which pass down the Chokmah as the sphere of the zodiac. And while we think of the zodiac as 12, it is in reality 4 triplicities. Each element is broken down into 3 signs, Cabalistically related to Yod, He, and Vav. The Hierophant is the administrator of the duality which emerges with Chokmah, is instructed by Binah, which begins its manifestation below the abyss in Hesed. It is thus related to Tifereth, the central point of manifestation. Tifereth is suggested in 2 ways here. The first is by the Vav itself, the 3rd letter of the Tetragrammaton, and the sun. The second, the S-O-N sun. The second is the number attributed to Vav, 6, which is also that of Tifereth. Because see, the Hierophant is also the 6th card. The Fool is number 0, so we call it the 5th, but it's actually 6. So it all correlates on lines. A more obtuse reference to Tifereth is Crowley's use of the 5-pointed star on the breast of the Hierophant, as the primordial elements evolve downward, they do so under the control of the fifth element spirit. The principle of the pentagram holds even in Kether, where the primordial elements are held in perfect, unexpressed unity by a fifth, which at the exalted level is the Ein Sof. This perfect unity is expressed by the swastika in motion, the central point of which is commensurate with the uppermost point of the pentagram. See, Philmore used to go in about that swastika and the motion. What Crowley has done in place of the pentagram so prominently here is to affirm the uniting of the above and the below, a process which in the symbolic moon always plays a key part. For the moon is found in both above and below the sun on the tree of life. It is Yesod and it is the high priestess. Here, both are implied, for the moon is exalted in Taurus. The fact that Taurus is ruled by Venus refers us to the Empress, the path of Dalet, which is the mean between Chokmah and Binah, just as Vav is the product of Yod and He. The Empress is Mother Nature, fertilized universal consciousness, which is at the root of the Hierophant's teaching. In this regard, it should be observed that the Hierophant is on the filling, Venus Netzach side of the truth. And that makes sense, because that's the pillar of mercy. It's also the same pillar as Hokman has said. We learn its lessons through intuition, as we learn the lesson of its opposite, the chariot, through intellect. On this path, intuition is applied to concepts collected by reason and built up by memory. We'll read that again. On this path, we learn the lessons of its opposite, the chariot, through intellect. On this path, intuition is applied to concepts collected by reason and built up by memory. Pass. Stop. Pursuant to the idea of Venus, Empress behind the Earth, Heirophant, there is a very interesting interplay of symbols. It shows a symbol for Earth, which is essentially the inverted symbol for Venus, which is an orb with a cross on top, which is what the emperor held in his hand. And that's just an inverted symbol for Venus when it's reversed. Also, the sign of Taurus itself is uniting of the symbols of the sun and the moon, which shows the crescent moon, point within a circle, and then you get Taurus, which has the bull horns, sun with the moon on top for horns. And as we have seen in the other cards, the uniting of the sun and moon always refers to the Garden of Eden. Baal is what the 32 paths of wisdom calls the paradise prepared for the righteous. Now that I never heard before. I'm gonna go back. And it almost stumbled me. I was trying to think about it and still keep reading. I'm gonna read it again. He said, as we have seen in other cards, the uniting of the sun and moon always refers to the Garden of Eden. Evolve is what the 32 paths of wisdom calls paradise prepared for the righteous. The Hierophant is the earthly aspect of the garden, as the chariot is watery. The lovers is airy and the emperor fiery. Yeah, the emperor represents Aries sun, fire, light. What we have explained as the grounding or earthiness of the garden is the law, expounded by the Hierophant. The Golden Dawn card shows this as a scroll, the same scroll of the law, which is held by the high priestess in the wake deck. Just watching this cat. Crowley's card, which is considered one of the most important of the tarot, contains many traditional elements, but adds some symbolism, which is entirely personal to Crowley's philosophy. He explains the image of a child within the pentagram within a larger hexagram. This symbolizes the law of the new aeon of the child Horus, which has supplanted the aeon of the dying god, which governed the world for 2,000 years. And elsewhere, he adds, for the rhythm of the Hierophant is such that he moves at intervals of 2,000 years. The Hierophant sits on a bull between two elephants, holding a wand with 3 interlocking rings. These rings symbolize the aeons of Isis, Osiris, and Horus. The child in the pentagram is Horus. Beneath is the scarlet woman. Above is what Crowley called an oriel, meaning a window, referring to Hay, the emperor, built out from a wall on brackets. In this case, 9 nails, balls. The symbolism means the linking of the above and below. The window is the passageway for light, manifest spirit between macroprosopus and microprosopus. So, but you see how the cards actually all just link one into the other. The Hierophant acts as a medium, whereas the emperor serves almost a similar function in that he's a window, allowing that light to beam down on the Hierophant, and then he is then transferred or transmuted through the Hierophant. But you see how each kind of blends one into the other. I think that's beautiful. In the Golden Dawn card, the figure holds a crook, one of the symbols of Chesed, suggestive of Jupiterian benevolence, or the crook. One of the symbols of Chesed suggestive of Jupiterian benevolence. But Crowley warns that the card is not necessarily benevolent, affirming an idea in the book of tokens that Vav, the 5th key, is the severe root of Gebarah. Crowley takes this one step farther. Though the face of the Hierophant appears benign and smiling, the child himself seems glad with wanton innocence. It is hard to deny that the expression of the initiative is something mysterious, even sinister. He seems to be enjoying a secret joke at somebody's expense. There is a distinctly sadistic aspect to this card. Crowley insists that this is quite natural as the key relates to the original bull legend, that of Pasiphae. In the Greek myth, Pasiphae falls in love with the sacred white bull, the union of which produces the Minotaur. This is, however, a very questionable interpretation. On the other hand, it is agreed by most authorities that there are some very unpleasant aspects to this key, having to do with this position intermediate between the above and the below. This issue and its implications are very cleverly related to Gnosticism by Richard Cavendish in his work, The Tarot. I did not know that Richard Cavendish had a tarot book. So let me stop for a second and look that up. I want to share my thoughts while I was reading that last passage about the nefarious or sinister aspects to the Hierophant, especially in relation to Taurus. And I think that one of the reversals, or not so much negative, but sinisterly whimsical aspects, is that as a conduit, as the nail that ties between the above, that ties the above to the below, as being that intermediary or road between the external to the internal, that Taurian energy is possessed of all possibilities and polarities. So the act of manifestation has to come through strict focus, because literally at this point, remember, the Hierophant is speaking ex cathedra, from the throne. So whatever you say is law. So let it be written, so let it be done. So if you don't maintain your frame, if you don't maintain your focus and intent, then everything you say is law, which can lead to madness, sadness, abject poverty, etc. Oh, I wanted to look up Richard Cavendish Tarot. So I'm about to get that. Anything by Richard Cavendish is worthy of getting, and I'll just blend it in with these studies right here. Let's take a good look. Hot and so hot and her. Richard Cavendish Tarot. Clearly it is unavailable. It is not available. Methinketh the game is afoot. Oh, here we go, $40. Used, not very used, but in good condition. Let's see. Bear with me. I'm gonna look real quick and see if I can find a cheaper copy. Because anything by him is worthy of getting. I just found it for $4. Went from 40 to 4. Then $9. Methinketh the game is afoot. Yeah. I'm gonna have to get it. There's one for 17. It's all about the same. Oh, this one come, the $4 one's coming from the United Kingdom. Miss me with that. I won't be waiting an eternity for that. So I guess the best seller of this Richard Cavendish book would be right here in Hawthorne, California. I'm going to add it to my basket. $17 free shipping, basically $20. 4 to 14 business days. You had me at hello. And the best part of my plan is no one can stop me. And this is how you find yourself amassing an excellent library, though. It is done you do it by the authors you respect. You get books that they've read and recommend and quote and read from. That's how you build up a really good library. And so, yeah, 18 bucks, 67 cents. I shall call him Mini-Me. And so Amazon had it for 40 bucks. I went over to abe.com, got it for 1867. Estimated delivery July 26th, or at the latest August 9th. It'll definitely be here sooner because it's in Hawthorne, California. So probably get it sometime next week. Okay, sorry for the sidetrack, but to hear Cavendish's name in Tarot, I'm going to get it. So taking in descending order, the trumps from the juggler to the Pope recall the Gnostic accounts of the creation of the universe. It is believed that in the beginning, the one became two by thinking, so that there was a mind and a thought. The juggler can be equated with the divine mind, the female pope with the thought in its original purity, the empress as the thought after it has become impregnated by the mind to become the mother of all the lower powers. Among those lower powers was the demiurge or cosmocrator, the maker of the visible world. Gnostics frequently identify the demiurge with the God of the Old Testament. He is regarded as an evil power, the maker and ruler of matter and flesh, in which the divine spark of spirit is held prisoner. The Pope also has some sinister undertones. Gnostics maintain that the evil demiurge invented conventional religion and morality to keep men enslaved to him by inducing them to worship him and obey his laws. The demiurge, the lesser creator who rules over manifestation, was the great deceiver. Thus, the initiate of the Valentinian Gnostic mysteries was taught to ignore the authority of this creator, whom Mead described as hanging from spirit at the very boundary of the phenomenal universe. It appears in any event that Cavendish is quite correct in his assertion that the negative qualities ascribed by tradition to this card have their roots in Gnosticism. The implications of Gnostic thought are, in regard to tarot, both complex and exciting. One who has studied the Kabbalah at some length may be surprised to find the same concepts expressed in the language of early Christianity. As one authority expressed the question, is Gnosticism Christian Kabbalism? Except for the name of Jesus, we are in a completely Jewish world. These are the mysteries of the Zohar and of Hasidism. As always, Kabbalistic Tarot is beyond dope. It is beyond dope. I would like to use it. I would like to cross-reference it with the mystical Kabbalah, but I probably won't, not tonight. Okay, let us move on to, before I get down to the good part, let's see, mystical Kabbalah. That would fall, it was the path between Hasid and Hokmah. And she does have a section on the paths of the tree under 72. Oh. Okay, dear. Unfortunately, we're gonna leave you out of this fight tonight. What I will read is, let's get to Paul Foster Case, who has swiftly become my favorite author on tarot. Not that I agree with everything he says, but I agree with most of it. And if not, he gives enough keys where I can come to my own conclusion, which is all I really appreciate at this point. The Heirophant. So again, the one on the left is the Bota Heirophant, And the one on the right is the Arthur, is the Rider-Waite deck. I'm just looking at some of the symbols. I have them up there. And actually at his feet, I guess those are his feet with the two crosses on them. Seeing as how he has a stigmata on his hand, and his feet should have it as well, because he's nailed to the cross to materiality. We got to remember to look up the triple cross, and then look up these colors associated. And we'll go through Paul Foster case and we'll look up the numbers 2 and 3, because there's the 2 keys, the triple tiered tiara, triple cross. So we see 2s and 3s. And we have the pair, the polarity, the pair of keys, and the 2 acolytes. So we're going to look at those things as well. Key 5, the Heirophant, Vav. Vav, V-U-W, value 6, means nail or hook, something to join the parts of a building together. Therefore, associative like Gimel, also something to support hanging objects. Therefore, something on which other things depend. A nail is a fastening, a link, a means of union. As a means of support, it is linked in thought and language, which suggest ideas as aid, assistance, sustenance, furtherance, and ministry. Now remember that this card is also associated with memory. And memory is to be used as a tool and not a couch, as a link. Just thought I'd bring that up. It will be seen presently that these ideas are not only directly connected with the occult meanings of Vav, but also with the symbolism of the Heirophant. In Hebrew, the letter Vav is the equivalent of the English and, Yod, He, Vav, He. Thus, the grammatical use of the letter is derived directly from its literal meaning. The conjunction and links together a series of nouns describing various objects as apples, and pears, and lemons. It also introduces dependent clauses in a sentence. In Hebrew, the letter Vav is used in precisely the same way. Thus, like a nail, it binds the parts of a sentence together, and clauses or phrases introduced by it hang from it, like pictures supported by hooks driven into a wall. That speaks of itself. If you say any sentence that you speak of and then use the word and, you are hanging that remaining, that you are hanging everything after and onto the original statement. So it acts as a nail or a hook. Now the central thought here is union. And this is the exact English translation of the Sanskrit noun yoga. The same Sanskrit noun is the root word of our word yoke. And some authorities are of the opinion that the original hieroglyphic symbol for Vav was a picture of a yoke, such as is used for harnessing oxen. That would be like the symbol for Libra. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. One moment. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Pause it out. All right, let's get back to it. Okay, so we just discussed that the original hieroglyphic symbol for Vav was a picture of a yoke, such as is used for harnessing an oxen, which, like I said, will be the symbol of Libra, the oxen representing Taurus, the bull, or earth, materiality, etc. It goes on to say yoga is a system of practice whereby the personal consciousness is linked to universal conscious energy. Its object is direct firsthand experience for those phases of reality which are the basis of all religions. Founders of religions are persons who have such experiences, and contention of practical occultists is that this kind of experience may be repeated whenever the right conditions are provided. It is not a capricious gift from on high. It is not miraculous. Rare it may be, but it is perfectly natural. And a human being who addresses himself earnestly to preparing himself for this kind of experience will find what he seeks. That is true. We shall find presently that the Hierophant in Tarot is a symbol of the mode of conscious activity which takes form in such experiences. Hearing, which unites man to man by speech and man to God by the word of the inner voice, is a sense attributed to Val. Jesus said often, "He that hath ears to hear, let him hear." This is a technical formula of ageless wisdom. It refers to the development of the interior sense of hearing just mentioned. In Sanskrit, the noun sruti, literally, sruti is spelled S-R-U-T-I, literally hearing is the term for revelation. Yeah, because you hear that inner voice, you hear that inner message. That's the revelation. It alone can remove the nascence, which is innate in human nature, says one ancient book. Similarly, the prophets of Israel declare again and again, "Thus saith the Lord," as if they were reporting things heard. Two of them, Samuel and Elijah, were directly aware of the divine presence as a voice. So again, we see the two acolytes at the feet of the Hierophant. This symbolizes the active process of hearing, of receiving. What was true then is true now. Knowledge of the higher aspects of reality comes to us through the soundless form of an inner voice, which often speaks as plainly as any voice heard with the physical ear. The reason is that the hearing centers in the brain are stimulated by higher rates of vibration, which serve as a means of communication between ourselves and more advanced thinkers. Many persons have flashes of this experience and our recognition that this is so is expressed by the oft-repeated statement, "Something seemed to say to me." Triumphant and eternal intelligence is the name of this mode of consciousness corresponding to Vav. It is triumphant because it gives assurance to the ultimate victory of the life power over all apparent obstacles now seeming to stand in the way of the completion of the great work. It is eternal because it not only carries with it a positive conviction of immortality, lifting personal consciousness out of the limitations of time and into the realization of freedom of eternity, but also because the revelations of the inner voice enable us to solve particular problems by applying principles in which, as soon as we perceive them, we recognize them as being true, yesterday, today, and forever. Taurus, the bull, a fixed earthy sign, is attributed to Vav. It is ruled by the planet Venus, key 3, the Empress, and is the sign of the exaltation of the moon, key 2, the High Priestess. There we go. There we go. That's the decoding of the 3s and the 2s in this symbol. There we go. The Empress key, and then the High Priestess. It's mind blowing. The name of the sign itself shows a secret correspondence with the higher spiritual things and with super consciousness, inasmuch as Aleph, the bull, is the letter corresponding to Ruach, the life breath, pictured in Tarot by the fool. The voice of the Hierophant gives verbal form to the vision of the fool. Revelation, key 5, is the communication of the transcendent knowledge of the super consciousness, insofar as the knowledge can be put into words. I know I brought a pen. Where is it? No, I grabbed a pen. Let me go get a pen. I want to make a note for myself. What happened to my pen? Okay. So this is Revelation. Is connected to this key. Right. So astrologically, too, the sign Taurus is representative of latent powers and energies, of secretiveness and reserve, ideas clearly suggested by the title and symbolism of the Hierophant. Furthermore, Taurus rules the neck, which is the link between head and body. And in the neck is located a psychic center dominated by the Venus vibration. The exaltation of the moon in Venus in Taurus indicates that the powers of the subconscious, especially the powers of memory and recollection, have their highest manifestation in the mental activities pictured by key 5. In our color scale, Taurus is red-orange. So that would explain the red that he wears. The musical tone is C sharp or D flat. Southeast. The direction attributed to Vol is represented on the cube of space by the vertical line connecting the lower southeast corner with the upper southeast corner. The edge of the cube is also the line along which the southern and eastern faces of the cube are conjoined. Let's pull that up real quick. The cube. Where art thou? Let's blow this up a little bit. Get this out the way. And so we see here is Vol to the far right, southeast corner, and it is connecting the moon. It is connecting below with above. Yeah, this is just mind blowing. Let me get these cards back up here. Let's keep this up here for now, just so we can see a better breakdown. Get that off the screen. Okay. What was that? In Tarot, South is related to key 19, the Sun. East is related to key 3, the Empress. Here is suggested a blending of solar and Venusian qualities. The Sun is a great center of what Hindus call prana. The Venusian vibration is that which manifests in mental imagery. Occultly, the blending of these two vibrations is the mingling of the universal conscious energy with the imaginative, generative powers of the subconscious. In the activity symbolized by the Hierophant, these two phases of the life power are combined. Heirophant means revealer of sacred things. It was the name of the chief officer in the Eleusinian mysteries and signifies that which makes known the hidden import of the appearance whereby we are surrounded. In many versions of the Tarot, this key is named the Pope, but Dr. Waite rightly says that this is a particular application of the more general office that he symbolizes. On the other hand, Pope literally means father, and when we consider the relation of key 5 to the Cabalistic tree of life, we notice that the path of all is the one which begins in wisdom, the second Sephirah, and descends to mercy, the fourth Sephirah. See the diagram of the tree of life at the end of this book. Let's go take a look. Even though I can see it mentally, let's see what he has here. So bad. Yeah, so it descends from wisdom, which is megas, down to mercy, which is exempt, adept. All right. Thus, the Sephirah wisdom is also known as Ab, the Father. It becomes evident that the Hierophant, as an expression of that Sephirah's outflowing energy, is not altogether misnamed when it is called the Pope. We do not agree with Dr. Waite that the Hierophant is the ruling power of external religion, exoteric orthodox doctrine, the outer side of the life which leads to the doctrine. On the contrary, he is the pontifex, the bridge maker, which provides a connecting link between the outer experience and the interior illumination, which is something that Robert Wayne pointed out in his Cabalistic Tarot. And he cited just this passage from Paul Foster Case. Put this water bottle back there. Okay. He sits on a throne between two stone pillars. These and the throne together with the background are gray, a color associated with wisdom, because gray is the tint resulting from equal mixture of any two complementary colors. Since the color complements are also opposites, gray stands for the perfect balance of all pairs of opposites. And this is the practical aspect of wisdom, the second Sephirah. Thus, the gray background of key 5 affords a very definite clue to the position of this key on the tree of life, since in color representations of the tree, the second Sephirah is painted gray. The design on the capitals of the pillars is a phallic symbol of union. Yeah, I was wondering about those signs, those on the capitals or the chapiters. Blow that up some. Yeah, those are phallic symbols, huh? Let's see. The pillars themselves repeat the motif. Let's go back. Okay, the design on the capitals or chapiters of the pillars, which is this right here, the at the top of the pillars, that section near the edge of the card is known as a capital or chapiter. Says that the capitals of the pillars is a phallic symbol of union. The pillars themselves repeat the motif of duality and suggest the laws of association represented by the pillars of the high priestess. The throne is also of stone, and the word stone has a very special meaning in the Bible and in Kabbalah. In Hebrew, stone is ABN, Eben. The first two letters of this word, Aleph Beth, are the letters of the noun Ab, meaning father. And this is one of the Kabbalistic names for the second Sephirah. The last two letters, Beth Nun, spell the word Ben, meaning son, father and son. And this is the Kabbalistic name for the sixth Sephirah, beauty, which, as you can see from the diagram in the tree, is the central point. And so to say, pivot of that diagram. Thus, in the word ABN, Eben, as Kabbalists say, the names of the Father and Son of wisdom and beauty are conjoined. And this is the main reason for the many symbolic uses of the word stone throughout the scriptures. Possibly even stone mason. The mason only means father and mother and son. So stone means father and son. At the back of the throne, on either side of the Hierophant's head, are two horned circles. Let's see, what does it say again? At the back of the throne, on either side of the Hierophant's head, are two horned circles. Oh, almost missed that. To the left and right of this car, the Hierophant, if you look on his chair, there's two horned circles representing the sign Taurus. The same Taurus symbol is shown also on the throne behind the Hierophant in the Rider pack, but it is drawn in such a way that few persons unacquainted with the occult meanings involved would be likely to notice it. Let's take a look. Oh, we can't see it. Where's my card? Where's my Hierophant card? See if it's on there, if it's readable. It's coming, baby. Well, it's not like he said, if you're not familiar with the sign and you miss it, I definitely don't see it, but I want to take his word for it. Now, where are we? This partial concealment may have been due to the fact that Dr. Waite seems to have been somewhat concerned lest he should expose the deeper occult significance of tarot to any but initiated students. The crown is a triple tiara, like the Pope's crown. It is of gold, symbolizing radiant energy and wisdom. It is ornamented with 3 rows of trefoils. Top row 3, middle row 5, bottom row 7. In the Rider deck, the middle row has 7 and bottom row 5. The total number is 15. The numeral value of the Hebrew divine name IH, Jah. This name is that associated by Kabbalists with the second Sephirah and affords another clue to the attribution of key 5 to the path joining the second Sephirah to the 4th. That was quite enlightening. I'm going to highlight that. And I highlighted it solely because it points out that the first row was 3, second row 5, bottom row 7. And that number is particular to me because it is uniquely associated with Freemasonry and is said to have essentially been lost as to its meaning. Now, 357 is actually 3 digits or 3 degrees for 360 degrees. But this is another meaning, and I'm going to look into it further. Since any trefoil represents the number 3, 15 of them stand for 3 times 15 or 45. Number of the name ADM, Adam. Here is a reference to the Kabbalistic doctrine that man or Adam is God's image of himself, that the primary thought in the mind of God prior to all manifestation must be God's awareness of his own nature and powers, and that this awareness is the true image of God designated by the name Adam. The 3 trefoils in the upper row designate the threefold nature of the life power. The 5 in the second row represent the 5 modes of manifestation, the quintessence, the 4 elements, or the 5 tattvas of Hindu philosophy, which are the subtle principles of sensation. The 7 in the bottom row now correspond to the 7 spirits of God, to the 7 sacred planets, the 7 alchemical metals, and to the 7 chakras or interior stars of the yoga schools. Here we have also the 3 principles of the alchemists, their 5 modes of manifestation of the one thing, and the 7 so-called metals. Now, what I want to point out is, at the beginning of this, I showed my book, The Occult Meaning Masonry and Symbols of the Chakra System. But here we see, I pointed out that although I use Masonry as a correspondence tool, you don't have to be a Mason to get it and to work with it. And we see here, it just, for me, it's like a confirmation of the association with these 3, 5, 7 in the chakras or your inner stars. So there are different ways. There are, all roads lead to Rome. So I used Masonry as a particular road to reach Rome, which is an anagram for amore, love, which is the heart chakra, which I happen to be rocking right now. So I just thought that was a cool little coinky dink. In the Rider pack, the tiara is surmounted by a black W, which you can see right there, indicating the correspondence to the key 5 to the letter Vav. In the Bota, builders of the Aditum version, the ornament at the top of the crown is a small sphere symbolizing the archetypal world. Below it, the three rows of trefoils in descending order symbolize the creative, formative, and material worlds. So let's go back to the Bota card and look at it. Booyaka, booyaka. I'll bring it straight to you. The outer robe of the Heirophant is red-orange, the color corresponding to Taurus. It has for trimming a border of blue-green, which is complementary to red-orange and corresponding to the sign Scorpio, the sign opposite and complementary to Taurus. At the neck, this outer garment is caught with a clasp in the form of a silver crescent. This is a symbol of the moon, which is exalted in Taurus. Its position at the Hierophant's throat is a reminder that Taurus rules that part of the human body. The symbolism is just amazing to me. Under this red-orange robe, the Hierophant wears a garment of blue, which is not evident here or in the weight deck, like that of the High Priestess, and having the same meaning. Under this is a white garment, like that of the Fool, and having the same significance. The crosses on the Hierophant's white shoes refer to the union of male and female, positive and negative forces, and to the order 4 cross, which result from that union. Similar crosses are shown on the backs of his hands, on the carpet under his feet, and on the handles of the cross keys. These 10 crosses repeat the symbolism of the 10 circular ornaments on the outer garment of the Fool. Hanging from the crown behind the ears of the Hierophant is an ornament in the form of a yoke. This refers to the primitive meaning of the letter Vav, which we discussed also was the yoke of an oxen. This refers to, it falls behind the Hierophant's ears to call attention to those organs of hearing. Remember, we discussed in Robert Wang's book, I believe it was, that hearing is closely associated with the Hierophant card. In his left hand, the Hierophant holds a yellow or golden staff, that symbolizes the dominion of the life power through the planes of nature, represented by the knob at the top, with 3 cross bars below it. These latter correspond in meaning to the 3 rows of trefoils on the tiara, and the knob at the top of the staff corresponds to the circular ornament at the top of the crown. The scepter is yellow or golden to show the power exerted in the Hierophant's dominion is the power of universal radiant energy. The cross keys at the Hierophant's feet are the familiar symbols of the power of papacy, yet they have a deeper meaning. One is silver and the other golden. They stand for the solar and lunar currents of radiant energy, which, as nerve currents in the human body, are utilized as keys to open the inner doors, leading to the higher modes of awareness. Now, the best way to work with these currents would be pranic breathing, Suna and lunar breathing through the left and right nostrils. I'm pretty sure Qigong utilizes this tactic. You can do it in meditation. You can utilize breathing techniques just to access and tap into this occulted ability, which the nose connected to the throat, connected to is tied into the moon or the number 2 card, the key number 2 in tarot. So those are ways you can tap into this card, doing Luna and Suna breathing, breathing strictly out the left nostril or breathing strictly out the right nostril. You can even, I would say, going by this, I would say if you're going to meditate on this card, I would inhale for a count of 2, exhale for a count of 2, inhale for count of 2, hold for count of 2, exhale for count of 2, and repeat. The cross keys are for a familiar symbol for power of prophecy, but yet they have a deeper meaning. One is silver, the other golden. They stand for the solar lunar currents of radiant energy, which, as nerve currents in the human body, are utilized as keys to open the inner doors leading to the higher modes of awareness. The golden key is the key of heaven, wherein the sun is ruler. The silver key is associated with hell because of the correspondence between the moon and Hecate, whom the Greeks worship as a deity of the underworld. Thus, the silver key relates to the powers of subconsciousness, and the golden key represents the power of superconsciousness. The square dea suggests the number 4, symbol of order and measurement, as if to suggest that however far beyond our present experience the higher consciousness may go, it rests on the solid basis of fact and reason. The dais is covered with a red-orange carpet corresponding by this color to Taurus. The 4 circles on it enclose crosses. The Venus symbol folded in upon itself. Circle and cross. They represent the manifestation of IHVH in the 4 worlds. Black and white checkerwork at the edges of the carpet remind us of the Masonic mosaic pavement, which represents the alternation of light and darkness and the manifestation of light power. The priests kneeling before the Heirophant wear robes which repeat the motif of flowers in the magician's garden. Their robes are ornamented with yellow palliums, symbols of the yoke or union. These are yellow because the yoke is that of Mercury or intellectual perception. I was just wondering while reading, like, we've tied in all of the previous cards except for the magician. So he just read my mind and tied that in. The priest who wears lilies personifies thought. The other represents desire. Because he has red roses, he has white lilies. The priest who wears lilies personifies thought. The other represents desire. Their attitudes of attentive listening refers to hearing. The number of this key, if you have learned, is that of law, of adaptation, of religion, and of man. Psychologically, the Heirophant represents intuition, which follows reason and adds to it. Intuition is subconscious response to reason, whereby, through the laws of association that work below the conscious level, thought relations which go beyond the result attained by reason are attained. Usually, these are perceived by interior hearing. Intuition, it should be noted, means literally inner tuition. Let's go back and look at the numbers 3 and 2. In Paul Foster Case's book, The Tarot, A Key to the Wisdom of Ages. We'll look at 2 first. It represents duplication, reflection, receptivity, dependence, alternation, antagonism, and the like. Kabbalists call it wisdom, the reflection of the perfect self-consciousness of the I am. Wisdom is the mirror wherein the I am sees itself. The number 2 is also named illuminating intelligence. It is that which illuminates the personal mind. It is the aspect of universal consciousness which manifests through human personality as grasp of the inner principles of the nature of the one conscious energy. In Hebrew occultism, 2 is also the particular number of the life force in all creatures. 3, multiplication, development, growth, unfoldment. therefore expression. 3 signified, I pause because it says development and growth, and that made me think of GDs, who gangster disciples, who also use the term growth and development. They're linked to number 3. Which would be the Empress. Three signifies the actual outworking of the principle reflected from 1 by 2. In Kabbalah, 3 is understanding, looking forward into the field of manifestation, in contrast to wisdom, 2, which looks back to the self-knowledge of the I am, 1. Understanding is the concrete application of abstract wisdom, hence 3 is called the sanctifying intelligence to convey the idea that through growth or expression comes the perfected manifestation of the potencies latent in the limitless light. On the form side, perfect realization, sanctification requires perfected organism and consciousness. It is perfected faculty and function. I think from here, I'm going to read Barbara G. Walker's book, The Secrets of the Tarot, Origins, History, and Symbolism. Let's read what she has said about the Heirophant. Then we're going to decode some of these symbols and wrap it up. Because your time is valuable to me, just like mine is valuable to me. Personally, I do these long videos because I used to be at work and I used to be like, all these 7-minute videos, 20-minute videos, good information. But when you have a lot of time on your hands where you can listen like me at work, I wanted something longer, something I could listen to and let it kind of like play in the background. And here I am creating my own background music. Hopefully somebody's at work with more time on their hands to listen than to actually watch and read and do for themselves. And voila. So here in Barbara G. Walker's book, she says this about the number 5 card, the Pope. The Tarot Pope is an especially enigmatic figure. He was surely not intended to suggest Christian orthodoxy. Those few scholars who equated him with the Roman Pope did so with many reservations. Writers interpreting the Pope as the card of established religion usually imply that the seeker after truth must look deeper, must look much deeper. Symbolic significance has been seen in classical tarot designs where the pillars of the church behind the Pope's throne support nothing at all. Numerically, the Pope was equated with the devil, Trump 15. And we know that to be true because of his tiara. 3 + 5 + 7 is 15. That would be the key 15 card, devil card. We call in the 13th century Gnostic belief that Jehovah of the Roman Church was a demon who made the material world only to trap souls in it. Some alternate designs for the Pope card depicted various souls in it. Some alternate designs for the Pope card, for the Pope's card depicted various gods of the heathen, which the church automatically defined as devils. French packs transformed the Pope into Jupiter to match the Papess's Juno, which I don't think, like I'm just a scholar at it, but from my understanding, Jupiter is more closely associated with the emperor than it is to the Pope. But I'm pretty sure it's a flexible symbol at that. In other packs, the Pope appeared as Bacchus, clothed in vine leaves, straddling a wine barrel, drinking from a bottle. Bacchus was widely remembered and often worshipped in medieval Europe. Italian peasants still swear by him, saying the equivalent of God's body as corpo di Bacco. As late as the 19th century, German wine growers still took omens for their harvest from Bacchus's ruined altar on an islet in the Rhine. Other names for the Tarot Pope, such as Grand Master or Gypsy Prince, suggest an association with magic. Several real popes were known to occultists as masters of the black art, notably Leo III of the Enchiridion and Honorius III, purported author of another grimoire, the Constitution of Honorius. Among its many magic charms, the Constitution gave the 72 secret names of God, whereby a practitioner of magic could work all sorts of miracles. There was a general belief that the real Pope's power rested on a carefully guarded knowledge of these secret names, a belief based on the ancient tradition of name magic, which evolved into the Christian dogma of the Logos, divine word. From the earliest times, priests of India and Egypt pretended to control their gods by spoken mantras containing the gods' secret names. Mohammedans likewise thought Allah would be forced to answer any prayer if his 99 secret names were pronounced. In the same way, Christians thought a priest could compel God to do whatever was asked by using the secret names and a special mass of the Holy Spirit. Such notions about the verbal powers of ecclesiastics were natural developments of the church's own doctrine of the keys. It was claimed that the Pope inherited the keys to heaven and hell, perhaps in the form of secret words or symbols given to Peter by Jesus. The keys guaranteed God's response to anything the popes wanted: blessings or curses, absolution or anathema. Whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Matthew 16:19. Actually, the doctrine of the keys existed long before Christianity. It was common to most pagan mystery religions. A high priest often impersonated the celestial key holder at the gates of heaven, Janus, the janitor. Roman Mithraeus had a supreme pontiff called Pater Patri, Father of Fathers, who held the keys to heaven and hell. Christian popes took over both his keys and his titles, which was gradually corrupted into Papa, then Pope. The name Peter was another variant of the priestly title. Jesus did not institute Peter the head of his church. He did not found the papacy. This so-called Petrine passage of Matthew 16 was a forgery, inserted at a late date to uphold the primacy of the Roman See against the rival claims of Constantinople. Byzantine patriarchs had adopted their own apostle, Andrew, from the Greek andros, man, claiming that he was the first of Christ's followers and elder brother of Peter, and the first apostle to be martyred. For these reasons, they said the Byzantine church must be considered the true papacy. The legend that Andrew was crucified on an X-shaped cross was not of Byzantine origin. It didn't appear until the late Middle Ages, apparently from Northern Europe, perhaps as a confused reinterpretation of the cross of Wotan or Odin. Deeper investigation of the Roman legend of Peter finds the curious. Now, what just came to mind, because she's talking about the Pope and the cross, the X cross. There is an image in the Vatican where the Pope speaks. The symbol is vaguely reminiscent of a serpent about to bite a cross that's laying on its side. Cross laying on the side is essentially an X. So that's what came to mind just now, is that that's what is being suggested here in this rivalry between Peter and Andrew. Which would be fire nonetheless. Let's get back to it. Deeper investigation of Roman legend of Peter finds the curious tradition of a Peter, Petra, or Pater acting as keeper of the keys of the afterworld, centuries before the Christian era. The etymological relationship of the words for father and rock, Petra, had a common source in the phallic pillar of stone planted in the Vatican Mount, where Christian mythology later located the upside down cross of St. Peter. Even before there was a Rome, an Etruscan high priest called Vatus guarded the gate of this sacred mount. The Peter or Petra seems to have been the phallus of Jupiter, holy begetter, derived from the ancient Aryan god Deus Ptah. There were other manifestations of this rock of ages. Egyptians knew an obelisk spirit called Petra, perhaps the same rock pillar worshipped by the Edomites at the holy city of Petra. In the Bible, this deity was the rock that beget thee, Deuteronomy 32:18. St. Peter's upside down cross may have been derived from a symbol of the heaven father's Petra coming down to fertilize the womb of Mother Earth. The pointed crown of an obelisk or phallic pillar was inverted as God descended, and inverted Petra formed the bridge between heaven and earth, which pagan Rome identified with its sacred palladium, sometimes called scepter of Priam, in the likeness of a male sex organ. The priest called Pontifex Maximus, great bridge builder, was charged with sexual rituals uniting the male spirit of the palladium with the female spirit of the Vestal altar. I know out here, just hearing the word palladium repeated over and over, out here, palladium was a club. You go there, it was always cracking. So hearing this masculine and feminine exchange of energy, it's no wonder why the palladium was always cracking. And it was, for lack of better terms, where the sexually charged rituals went down, right? The priest called Pontifex Maximus, great bridge builder, was charged with the sexual rituals uniting the male spirit of the palladium with the female spirit of the Vestal altar. Such priests wore the conical hat called apex, which evolved into the Pope's pointed tiara. Thus, scholars now say the Pope's tiara is phallic. There is a reason to suspect that Vatican authorities even preserved a more graphic representation of the phallic Petra god through the centuries. A Victorian visitor in the 19th century said the Vatican priest kept in secret a large stone emblem of the creative power of a very peculiar shape. So clearly, there's probably a huge vein penis somewhere in the Vatican made of stone. Similar to the lingam stone, most likely. Thus, it seems likely that the Christian legend of St. Peter's foundation of the Roman Church had no basis in historical fact, but was grafted onto an older tradition of the masculine spirit of Rome. It may be that the Tyrol Pope represented at least a part of the older tradition. However, inaccurately remembered. In pagan terminology, the Pope was the eidolon, image of the god, like high priests of old. It is interesting that some modern Tyrol pacts changed the Pope's title to high priest or Heirophant, the same title that distinguished the man chosen to mate with Demeter in the Eleusinian Mysteries, or to impersonate Osiris in the Mysteries of Isis. Common folk usually saw a high priest as an embodiment of the deity. That link. The link between, well, when I said that link, I meant the link between heaven and earth, which is what Volve and the Heirophant card represents as the nail, the hook. It links the above to the below, the outer to the inner. The link between the Pope and the devil in Tyrol symbolism could have descended from the legends of several Roman popes said to have attained their office by making a pact with the devil. Medieval folks seem to see no incongruity in assuming that the papal throne was at the devil's disposal. Perhaps the devil's most famous papal protege was Gerbert de Aureliac, who became Pope Sylvester II. Gerbert Herbert, most likely, grew up in a 10th century French, still saturated with Dianic fairy religion, and may have belonged once to a group who worshiped Diana Sylvia. Even as Pope, it was said he had a fairy mistress named Mary Diana, who taught him the secrets of magic. The name he chose as Pope used to be a title of consorts of Diana Sylvia, which is why I chose Sylvester. He was given up to his deity. The truth about Pope Sylvester was that he was more intelligent and learned than most of his ecclesiastical contemporaries, whose custom it was to attribute diabolical influence to anything that was beyond their ken. The list of great men in those centuries charged with magic is astounding. It includes every man of real mark, and in the midst of them stands one of the most thoughtful popes, Sylvester II, Gerbert. It came to be the accepted idea that as soon as a man conceived the wish to study the works of God, his first step must be a league with the devil. Out of all these possibilities, who really contributed most to the Tarot image of the Pope? Was it Sylvester, Honorius, Leo, Jupiter, Bacchus, Osiris, the pagan Petra, the Mithraic Peter, the pontifex who became a pontiff, the devil? Interpretations are largely a matter of choice. One can only guess at the lessons learned in the 13th century from a strange portrait of a holy man. And what we're going to look up real quick is, let me take out this Heirophant card. I'm going to replace it with the Chariot. That's what I'm moving on to next. Even though I'm going to spend the next week with the Heirophant, I'm going to use the Chariot as my next. I'm sorry, the Lovers is next. The lovers only, the lovers only, the lovers only, the lovers only. All right. All right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to Barbara G. Walker's other book, A Woman's Dictionary of Sacred Symbols and Objects. We're going to look up some of the symbology found in the Key 5 Hierophant. So let's do it to it. So let's see what Barbara G. Walker has to say about this symbol. We're gonna look up first at triple cross. Triple first, maybe just beyond the cross. Maybe she has a group together, but I'm gonna look it up first. Now, one said triple cross is also associated with Peter, but we shall find Issel, mine, missile. Triple ring, triple key, triple goddess, triple arrow. So it must be under cross. Let's go look up crosses. I gotta do better. I could have some music playing in the background. I had the shock music playing, but when my family came home, got to turn it back on. So we have several references to the cross. Eight, 11, and 153. Let's walk it up. 8, 11, and 153. Nah, this is not what I'm looking for. Not what I'm looking for. 153. there either. So let's go to 166. Let's go to 472. No, in her book. I distinctly remember seeing. I had to be under four-way motifs. Yeah, under four-way motifs. So let's go to 45. Let's see what she has under four-way motifs, which brings up the swastika, which was mentioned. So we'll definitely stop at that. Oh, she actually doesn't have it. I know I saw it in her book. I thought I did. Let's look at here. Cross first. I just grabbed that J.C. Cooper's and Illustrated Encyclopedia of Symbols. This is, look at triple cross. That's the only problem with having a big library. You know you read something, but you have to recall memory, Heirophant. You have to connect that memory with what book you got it out of. Because once you read something so much, you actually make the information your own. So it actually gets harder to recall what book you got it from. See, here he just has a cross. So let me see if I can find anything on the triple cross. I know for a fact that I had it in one of these books with a nice picture of it too. Oh, that kind of sucks. Okay, let's look up keys then. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. All right, let's see. Key, an axial symbol which includes all powers of opening and closing, binding and loosing. There we go. The key also denotes liberation, knowledge, mysteries, initiation. It is closely connected with the symbolism of Janus, a binder and looser, the inventor of locks, the god of initiation. He holds the keys of power to open and close the key of the door, giving access to the realm of gods and men, as above, so below. The doors of the solstices of winter and summer, and Genua Koali in Capricorn being the door of the gods, the ascending and increasing power of the sun, the Genua Infernus in Cancer, the door of men, and the ascending and waning power of the sun. Silver and gold keys represents respectively temporal and spiritual power, the lesser and greater mysteries, and earthly and heavenly paradise. We also know it means sun and moon, heaven, hell. The alchemic definition is the power of opening, closing, dissolution, and coagulation. Celtic, the stable key is an attribute of Epona. I forget who mentioned Epona just now. We're gonna look Epona up inside Judica Illus's book. Guardian of forces, Christian emblem of St. Peter as guardian of the gate of heaven, also an attribute of the Pope. St. Martha had a bunch of keys, Greco-Roman attribute of Hecate as guardian of hell, also of Persephone and Cybele. Adelle won Tarot. Please believe it. What was I? See, Janus, Hebrew, the keys of God are the raising dead, birth, fertilizing rain. Japanese, the three keys of the granary are love, wealth, and happiness. Mithras holds the keys of power to open and close. So, one of the symbols we see here are pillars. Let's look at the pillars real quick. Pillars and throne and stone, huh? Elemental P. See my number. Incoming. The world axis, the vertical axis, which both holds apart and joins heaven and earth, which both divides and unites. A ritual world center, an omphalos pillar, and a tree. Symbolism are closely connected, and the pillar often symbolizes the tree of life. The pillar also represents stability, the concept of standing firm, and according to Philo, the idea of God who stands firm and is stability as opposed to human flux. It also raises the sacred or venerated above the profane or ordinary. Which stone? Robert Wayne broke that down. No, that was Paul Foster Case who broke down the Hebrew word stone, ABN, which actually consists of father and son, and then Peter with stone and keys and rock, and all those stone allusions to the Heirophant or Pope card. Just look that up while we're close. We've been going for a while. Let's see, stone. Stability, durability, reliability, immortality, imperishability, the eternal cohesion, the instructability of the supreme reality, static life, a stone, rock, mountain, tree, or grove, all of which are associated symbolically, can represent the cosmos in its entirety. Stones often accompany trees in sacred places. We just said that the stone and pillars are synonymous with trees. So we're going to drop that off. We're going to get this Judith Illis joint. We're going to look up some of these deities that have been mentioned, beginning with Epony. Here's another good bookmark. I keep it on my books, which is Cabalistic Tree of Life. Can't see it because of the glare. Always have you some good bookmarks. Print them out. Don't have to be a little small square. Print you out some images of power, stuff them in your book. Every time you open it, you'll be reminded that you are who you think you are. I am who I say I am. I am, all those good things. Let's see. Epony, who is name is associated with horses, and we can hear it in his name. Epona. Here we go. Celtic. Epona is a great and important goddess, guardian spirit of horses and their riders. Her name derives from epos, E-P-O-S, a Celtic word indicating horse. She is never portrayed without one, but Epona is more than just a spirit who oversees horses. She is an extremely complex deity who was once widely venerated throughout Europe. Epona is a spirit of abundance and plenty, healing and death. She is the goddess of peace and the matron of soldiers. Her shrines incorporated therapeutic healing springs. Her carved image appears several times within an ancient pagan cemetery near what is now Metz, France. Epona may be a psychopomp. So he may be an attribute of Anubis. One cemetery carving depicts Epona riding her mare, followed by a man whom she may be leading to the afterlife. The ancient Celts perceived horses as oracular animals, more closely attuned to the will and desires of spirits than human beings, even shamans and priests. Various rituals involving horses were intended to reveal the desires of the deities. Epona is likely to have been an oracular spirit. She may or may not be the same spirit as Rhiannon. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was reading this and they talk about horses and rituals. What came to mind was Game of Thrones. And if you remember when Daenerys sacrificed that horse trying to bring back Khal Drogo, who was a horseman himself, and then one of her horses was named Rhiannon, if I'm correct, or something similar to that name. So we can see that uh, the author of those books, whose name escapes me, I read all those books. Game of Thrones. I can't think of the author who wrote those books, but you can see he knew his mythology or he channeled it, one or two. As with virtually all Celtic goddesses, little documentation regarding the opponent exists. Attempts are made to piece together her myth and history using archaeological evidence. She was popular throughout virtually the entire ancient Celtic world. Roman soldiers encountered her in Gaul and adored her literally. Uniquely for Celtic deity, Epona was brought to Rome, enshrined, and assigned her own official feast days, indicating her official recognition as part of the Roman state religion. Epona was especially popular during the first through the 4th century CE. She was venerated by a wide spectrum of Romano-Celtic society. Epona was beloved by Roman cavalry officers who adopted her as their own guardian goddess. The Roman legions carried veneration of Epona throughout the Roman Empire. Epona was venerated in Britain, Gaul, the Rhineland, North Africa, Rome, and as far away as Bulgaria. Her major Celtic shrine was in Burgundy, renowned as a center of horse breeding. It says here Epona was not identified with any Roman goddess, but incorporated into the Roman pantheon in her own right. So that shows how much power Epona carries. I'm going to read all the way through because she's going to give us some good tips on how to tap into Epona. Epona is the matron of soldiers. She has dominion over horses, donkeys, and mules, which is possibly over stubborn people as well. Those who care for them may consider themselves under Epona's dominion too. Those who abuse them should probably avoid attracting Epona's attention. Favorite people: horse breeders, horse traders, horse whisperers, horse doctors, equestrians, and cavalry. Iconography: Epona is never represented by a horse. Typical image portrays Epona riding side saddle on a mare. A foal sleeps beneath its mother, suckles from its a foal sleeps beneath its mother, suckles from its mother, or eats from a plate that Epona offers. Alternatively, Epona is portrayed sitting between several horses that approach her in homage, or she sits between male and female ponies and feeds them. She is occasionally portrayed as a mermaid on a horseback. That's that moon attribute, the mermaid. Uh, Attributes: a key cornucopia, basket of fruit, the cloth more traditionally used to start horse races, spirit allies. The mothers are Epona's sometimes companion, sacred animals, horses, but also dogs and ravens. Well, I said earlier she was a correspondence to Anubis. There you have a sacred day, 18th of December, a Roman feast, offerings, cakes, fruit, something for her horses. She See also Desponia, Maca, mermaid, mothers, Rhiannon, and the glossary entity for identification. Janus was mentioned several times. Let's look up Janus real quick. Here we go. Janus, also known as Giano Dianus, January 1st. Janus is a two-faced spirit, but in most positive sense of the term, Janus literally has two faces, indicating his power to see from all directions and perspectives. He sees the past and future simultaneously. Janus is a guardian and protector. Janus is among the most ancient, significant deities of the Roman pantheon. He was in the Roman region long before the Romans arrived, before the arrival of Jupiter. He may have been the preeminent male spirit, officially superseded by Jupiter within the context of the Roman pantheon. Janus retained his right to be first. That's crazy, because Janus is where we get the term janitor from. And janitors kind of become background noise in most places. And that can be seen, that can be interpreted as Janus being kind of supplanted by Jupiter and other popular deities. But we all know that janitors are important. We all know how important janitors are, because janitors have the keys to every building and the door. And yeah, so that's kind of like fire. I want to look at Godwin's Cabalistic dictionary. I'm gonna look up a couple things and then wrap it up. Let's go to Val first. Yo, hey, whoa, hey. Call me crazy. All right, 163. Let's go look for 5. You hear my name, you call me crazy. P, Q, R, S. I forgot. I'm going in alphabetical order. So I'm doing, this is Hebraic, man. After hay comes Vav. Oh, wow. All right. 6th letter. That's it. Number 6. Okay. The 6th path is the sepulchriferous beauty, the hexagon, the hexad, mystic number of the 3rd path, Bina, Vav, 6th letter Hebrew alphabet. Well, I think with that, we're going to call it a good adieu. Again, thank you for spending this time. I want to say, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, share, definitely comment, let me know what you think. Any tips or tricks you want to share, I'm open to it. Go out and get a copy of my book. Let me get a copy to show you. The Occult, meaning the masonry and symbols and the chakra system. You can go to pillarbookpublishing.com and get your copy. You will not regret that purchase. As in all things, again, I'm going to say thank you for spending this time, and hopefully you got something out of it. I know I did, something impactful, hopefully something that can guide you in your personal studies. And the next time we get together, we will be on the lover card, which is number 6. And that's about it. We'll wrap this thing up.